We bring this solution and ourselves take this down. Having to pull through big time, and that's stretch challenge. 3 back. Available. In Sapphire, though, Grimer is a 25% bigger fan of wheezing than Monk, but you'll see why we chose Sapphire in a little. Java has a gentle nature plus special defense and minus defense, which is not as bad as it could be. Popping chances. We find a much needed rest stop, and the old lady keeps shoving my head back down on the pillow and won't stop saying that we need more rest. This is one of these situations where we just be here for 45 drunk and finally learn to water move bubble beam with some great quantity and coverage. On this room, we can also find our next encounter, and the reason why we chose Sapphire over Ruby, the Viper, which is exclusive to this game, while Ruby can barely see that. We catch it and imitate Ruby, and it ends up having the hidden nature plus speed and minus attack. Absolutely brutal. On the summit of Mount Border, we encounter Maxie, who's being accosted by 3D aquagrubs. How in the world is this Puccina holding up here? I love how they tried to illustrate that this is a viable battle by having Maxie's Puccina rapidly shake up and down quicker than the others. Is it back to the boy? Here we have to battle against Team Aqua here. Our team was actually looks kind of scary on the face of it. We're playing having with rockets for our clear body ability can't be very intimidating. Bubble Beam does a bit more than it's funny, and it makes things so we don't have to worry about flinching. However, in the crit and greatness afterwards we use the super potion so we can't KO him. I forced the switch to X-Wing here and run us from low half before we KO him. He decides to bring out his own goal back here so they can open mouth each other. God, that sounds terrible. And we thankfully get a crit on his goal back, and after a super potion, I thought we could truly KO him, but our second wing attack just barely doesn't KO, and I'm like, no! But we survive on a singular HP stat. Holy! Thankfully, we do have speed and can take him down, though. Here comes Sharknado, and we are not in a good position here. I switched to Consumer, but Clutch does way too much. Whoops. I then sent in Mantra, who's got great defense, but he crits us right on the switch. With 2 pushes left, I put Java out there and Clutch takes him down to red. Our final choice is Metal, whose defense is quite low, but we actually survive with over half, and it looks like we might be able to survive a second, and we do on exactly 1 HP and can take it down. Holy, that was way too close. From here, we arrive at Lawbridge Town, and while running for our next big battle, Consumer evolves into a beautiful Swallow, which could be a great defensive presence now. Thanks to the Suit Bell, we also have Golbat evolved into Crobat, and the Ray, which is 100% accuracy instead of Supersonic, 55%. And now this name makes sense too. Here, I decided to use the TF from the Slateport Museum to Grimer so that we can start using it to get great items like a Poison Bar, which increases the power of poison for a long time, but eventually you can find a couple, but this is all I have the patience for right now. With that, it's time for the 4th team leader, the Fire-type trainer, Flannery. Now, although Tentacool seems like a dumb here, you have to keep in mind she does have a stunning day, with leaving water moves if it's activated. She sends us Slugma, and I send us Crockett, and Bubble Beam just barely leaves Slugma with a sliver, and yep, she goes for Sunny Day. I use safety. Now I can stall Sunny Day out before she sends his Orphle, but I know she'll heal up, so I go for Bubble Beam again, and it does less than half now in the sun. Our next one is a crit, though, which is actually a bad thing for us. He sends in another Slugma, and Bubble Beam gets a crit again. Oh, man, why? In comes the Torkoal in the sun. Not good. I go for Supersonic, and thankfully it lands. It uses it, and it hits itself in fusion. Bubble Beam does very little, though, and then it hits us with Body Slam, which does about 2/3, but our Foreign Berry doesn't do enough. We get KO'd by another. I send in Consumer here, who's our best defensive presence, and Torkoal hurts himself on the switch. I go for Yawn right away to put it to sleep on the next turn. Torkoal snaps out of confusion, but just goes for Flail, which does very little. Sludge then brings Torkoal low, but poisons it. Why? Now it won't go to sleep, and Flannery uses a Hyper Potion. From here, it is a long stall war, but Torkoal paralyzes us in the midst of it, causing it to outspeed us, and we have to switch. X-Wing is our best option here, and Body Slam does little, and we can take it out with a wing attack. More trouble than that probably should have been, but we got it back. While driving for the next gen, Tentacool ends up evolving into a Tentacruel. Damn, if only we had done this before the fire gym. Now, Norman's battle is always a scary one, and we certainly don't have any direct counters to his team. Our team is kind of predicated on Fox's status to begin with, but that will double the power of his team's staff facade move, so it's not a good idea. But I have a bit of a plan. Let's give it a go. He leads with a slacking, and I lead with a newly evolved rocket. My plan is to try and take advantage of confusion in this battle, the only sort of status kind of thing that we have that won't increase their facade power. We hit Supersonic on our first try, but he breaks through and hits the facade for just above half. I go for Bubble Beam, and it does very little, but Slacking's truant ability allows us to get another off. He then goes for John Nose, so I'm forced to switch it to Chromax. Wing attack brings him to about a quarter, but he breaks through confusion and hits his facade to about half again, then Roman heals it with the Hyper Potion. We keep chipping him down, and eventually he snaps out of confusion and uses John on us. I decide to switch back into Crockett on the Truant turn, hit him with Bubble Beam, and then he uses Yawn yet again. Because of Truant, we're actually able to pivot effectively around those and can take him out with Next Wing. It comes bigger off, and since it doesn't have Truant, it is a scary one, but now that we have X Wing out, I hit him with 100% accuracy Confuse Ray. He hits himself into confusion, then when the attack brings him below half, he hits himself into confusion again. When the attack just barely doesn't KO, but he hits himself again. Last with a high critical hit ratio could have been dangerous, but I think he was pretty safe other than the crit, but still could confuse protection. He becomes his final slacking and Confuse Ray hits, but he breaks through and hits with the Nod, so he lives on 69 HP. I switch to Consumer here and Slacking breaks through again to hit us for about half, but I can flip Yawn now since he won't activate the Sod's power, but so his sleep of course. I then try to spam Rock Smack here, and although it didn't do much damage, it does have a chance to lower his defense, which I feel is going to be necessary. After a few, he wakes up and snaps out of confusion on the same turn, and he hits with the Sod, and he lives on 5 HP. And that was close. On his true turn, I go for Yawn though, and then switch into Mantra, who can take a low half with Facade, and our Oranberry is not enough to deal another. But we do have Moonlight to heal us. I then go for Harden and start dealing with Side Beam afterwards. Our third time we confuse him and try to find his Truant and Moonlight, I have solved it out over time, so he can always heal on his Truant turn. With that, we defeated Norman and obtained our 5th gym back, but not without some scares. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good at realizing we could very well go for our first deathless run here, as having access to a lot of encounters early on is new to us and has been very helpful for pivoting. After the gym, we're given the Survey Gem by Wally's dad, which is the ideal move for Tentacle. We're also close to over-leveling now, since Winona's cap is level 33, so I deposit X-Wing for now and bring in McGee, our survivor on the team, temporarily to use and Oranberries. Would highly recommend doing this if you're doing a Gen 3 Nuzlocke on your own. On Route 119, we can get our final encounter an Audit, which we can't get nicknamed Flytrap, and it has a bashful nature, which is neutral. I'm going to leave Flytrap as a PC for now as backup, and we have a flying gym up next to it, so won't be very helpful there. Our next battle is May after the weather executed very smoothly as the rain moves from its stern and makes it super powerful. Now, right after reaching Fortress City, I went to Route 120 to get our last couple of levels, and ran into a trader who absolutely slaughtered our entire team with a pilot we evolved in. It was raining too. Waterfall from wind recover devastated our entire team, especially with confusion. Then, on my way to heal, I accidentally ran into another trainer, and we had a series of coughing. I tried to push through with our only remaining Pokemon, Java, but one of the coughing self-destruct and obliterates him. I was really upset about this one. Buck is a fantastic Pokemon, and we were getting close to that evolution. First step on the board. Why does a random no-name trainer have a pilot in the rain? Alright, she has a name. It's Jennifer, aka... The Fortress Gym looks like a tough one on the face of it, especially with the steel head armory, and it's Dragon Dancing Altarna with super effective First Blade on 5 out of 6 of our Pokemon. However, I have a plan. I go all the way back to the abandoned ship to the west of Slateport to get the Ice Beam TM, which I teach me Rocket. Winona leads with a Swallow, and I lead with Rocket. Despite her Swallow's attempts to double team like crazy, we kick it down into the Ice Beams after he used the Hyper Potion, where Altaria comes out next, and it's 4 times weak to Ice Beam, but we still don't KO it. It then goes for Dragon Dance, and I'm like, uh-oh, Earthquake could very well be a KO from here. So I switch to Clovax as a healer to it, and that lets us outspeed to take her down even after the Dragon Dance. Caliper is then handled by a combination of Confuse Ray and Consumer's tankiness, even though we got dropped to 32 HP after she crit us. Skarmory is a big threat, but thankfully Rocket still had enough health to easily win and take it down with 2 serves. Very glad we got that Ice Beam.
With Agile, security, end-to-end, you can be productive anywhere. But it doesn't stop there. There's also Windows with data insights. Together we establish methods that continue away.
That's direct investing. Guys, get up to $2,100 in direct investing. Ready to help you move forward. Other jumps in you, parents will mention about their degenerate humor too. And then I remember we forgot to take the mystic water item from the kitchen cabin once in the weather industry. So I think that's talking to the water. Author also finally learned this bad move in the form of silver weed. This is great expense for a while. A good record actually. After a ton of grinding, it's time for the pond to because I'm typing textures. On the face of it, this feeling is terrifying for us, but Monster is able to do a good job getting started. Despite the features of foundations, he has a pretty good set of events. With that, it's time for the gym leader to take advisor. Now, initially, I was quite scared about this battle, but some of the strategy I thought would work well. The major problem we face with Paralysis for effectiveness is that Pokemon has some game, but if we keep that Pokemon rocking and actually focus fire and take it out before it's ready to get so, and it works quite well with First and it gives you flat glasses boosted crunch. Another show that uses light screen, but the damage is done and we take it down with another Serpent Crunch combo. These two could have blasted us into oblivion with crunching, but I think we handled this quite effectively. On the way to front arcade and Kyogre in the Seafloor Tavern, we pick up the Earthplate TM, which should be quite useful as Survivor can learn it for great touch coverage, especially against steel types who otherwise kind of wall us. Archie's battle is up next, and this time I'm determined to do it properly. So I lead with Rosalia against my Nina to intimidate this in a fashion. I paralyze it with Stun 4 right off the bat, and he is paralyzed. I'm then able to use Glow to raise her special attack power, and he is paralyzed again, after which Game's range is clearly just to think about. Knowing Crobat really coming out next, I can see opportunity to switch to X-Wing while he heals, and I go for Fly and then try to take him down. He sends out his own Crobat, which uses Confuse Ray on us right away, as it apparently outspeeds us, but after a long and drawn-out Crobat versus Crobat battle, we get ourselves in confusion to the red and have to switch. So I go into the Nini, who's barely able to take him down with 22 HP left. He sends out Sharpedo next, and hoping he goes for either Screech, Swagger, or Taunt. I switch to Rosalia, but he uses Slash, which actually would have killed if it was a crit. Yikes. Our poison does poison him though, and I switch to Mothra, and Slash does very little. He then goes for Slash again, and gets a crit this time, but Mothra tanks it with 14 HP, and he uses her effective Silver Wing to take him down. We make it to the top of the city afterwards, and this one wanted to get their kids. The top of the ship is always a threatening one, but this time we have a secret weapon, Pebble. Wallace's Locust only has moves like Flail, Attract, Lovely Kiss, and Waterfall, so I think it is the perfect thing to set up against if we can. He misses his Loveliness right off the bat, and I hit with Stun 4, after which I can start charging up Rogue. He did hit us with Attract and just 2 stuff consecutive turns, but the most damage he can do is either Confusion or Waterfall, so it's nothing more than a nuisance, really. Once we're ready, I use Fusion Strand to take it out, and we snap into Confusion when his Helio comes in, thankfully, so we can take it down as well. This pilot has outspeeds and hits us hard with super effective Ice Beam, but thankfully Rosalia's special defense is good enough that we survive like 25 HP and get one shot. The same goes for his Whiz Dash, as well, it's 4 times effective, and on his speaking, I realized we have no more Demon Drain power points, so I use Stun 4, then Lead, and then switch to Crockett and what he has, and take advantage of the ring that he set up to go for extra powered serves and take him down. Edel has been amazing so far. All 8 dashes required. After making it through Victor Go, he got a long and I attempted the Never Melt Ice on technical power up ice. Online, you take it out with a few serves, and finally avoid the deal with Magneton.
It isn't really the funnest video topic to go out there and talk about, but I feel like it is somewhat important to highlight just, the equality here, because when some teams are doing poorly, we highlight how bad they are, and when other teams are doing as poorly, sometimes they kind of slip under the radar. And with this story here, the Calgary Flames, it plays in very well with the news we had yesterday coming out of Florida, and a player who was doing extraordinarily well over there. So, without further ado, we're going over the Calgary Flames in today's video, and we're also talking about Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers. Now, the reason we're making this video, firstly, is because of a Reddit post I saw here posted up to Our Hockey, and it kind of highlights just the disparity in terms of the way we, as a collective hockey fan base, talk about teams in Alberta. Why is nobody talking about the Calgary Flames? Posted by a user named Connor. It seems like Edmonton's recent slide has been the topic of discussion for the last 3 weeks, which is fair. However, Calgary has quietly lost 8 of their last 10 games, all in regulation, and 9 in their last 13. It seems like Alberta is collectively taking a massive dump, but the Flames are flying under the radar. Now, the first comment kind of sums everything up in a very funny way. Nice try, Nick David, because the original poster's username is Connor, kind of saying, hey, why is everybody talking about Edmonton, which is fair, but nobody is talking about Calgary, who is also doing as poorly. The Calgary Flames this season, if you go over to the NHL standings, are not great. You take a look at the Pacific Division and you see that Calgary is right there, 5th team in the division, 1 point behind San Jose for the final wildcard spot in the West, 2 points ahead of Edmonton and 5 points ahead of the Vancouver Canucks. They are indeed 2-7-1 in their last 10, despite the fact that their goal differential numbers are honestly pretty good. 87 goals against is one of the best metrics in the entire West. In fact, they're number 1 in goals against in the West, and tied for 3rd overall in the entire NHL when it comes to goals against, with the Boston Bruins behind the Islanders and the Hurricanes. But they're still doing poorly. They can't really get in the offense. They've been losing their games. And now it's all of a sudden a little bit more difficult to see where things are heading because San Jose and LA have forced themselves into those playoff spots. In fact, it's an all California, Nevada playoff race in the Pacific right now with the Golden Knights, the Ducks, the Kings, and the Sharks leading the way. It's kind of crazy how things work out that way at this point in the season, but alas, that is kind of what we have. There are some comments in here highlighting from Flames fans why the Flames being bad is not really being talked about. Because we barely play in Treble 13 sets, so people forget we exist. Also, most of our losses have been to the top teams in the East. We do have a lot of issues right now. We can't score outside our top line, and it's tough to win low-scoring games when we're dressing a key to the door. This user says here, because people expected us to be bad and were surprised when we were good. Now we're just headed to what everyone thought we were to start the season. We came back from a month off and got to play Seattle and Chicago to warm up. Then 3 games in 4 days against Florida, Tampa, and Carolina. Then we got 5 days off to get rusty again to play Ottawa, and now another 4 days off. And man, it kind of sucks that the Calgary Flames in their point production is not really consistent throughout the lineup, and is only really being carried by that top line, is it not? Could this Calgary Flames team need some depth when it comes to their scoring ability? Probably, and it's kind of frustrating because there is a guy that they just traded away that has really started to turn things on in that respect. We're talking about Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers too. Now, last night the Florida Panthers had themselves a game against the Dallas Stars. They won 7-1, and Sam Bennett, 18-year-old Sam Bennett, as I remember this guy being named in the 2015 NHL playoffs, went out there and scored himself a hat trick, getting his 12th, 13th, and 14th goals on the season. Those numbers are pretty significant. We're talking about why in a little bit here. But going over the goals that Sam Bennett went out there and scored. The first goal on the power play to make it 5-0. Yeah, it's pretty late in the game right here. It's a nice play where Sam Bennett gets the puck in the corner, he comes out to the slot, and he shoots it, he scores it. Just a pretty good goal, scorer's goal right there. The next goal came a few minutes later. It's at even strength instead of the power play. This one's a weird play where Duclair takes it into the corner, it bounces around. I think Huberdeau gets a stick on it too. And then after it bounces off a few Dallas Stars players, it pops out in front to Bennett, who takes it in the slot, he shoots it, he scores it. And then the final goal of the game for Sam Bennett was the third period marker, giving him the hat-trick. This one was a pretty good play as well as on the rush. Pretty nice give-and-go play with Duclair and Bennett. And Huberdeau gets his 37th assist of this one as well. My goodness. He has a 37 assist. That guy's so good, dude. But either way, his 37th assist on the year is good enough to give Sam Bennett the hat-trick and give his 14th goal of the season, too. I did say the number was significant this year as well. In the previous year's worth of play in Sam Bennett's career, he's only bested 14 goals one time. That was his rookie season where he had turned, I believe he was 19 in this year because his 18-year-old year was earlier on in 2015 in the playoffs. Yeah, that's kind of the case right there. As a 19-year-old, Sam Bennett went out there, had 77 games played, 36 points, and 18 total goals. That was his most productive season ever, and it wasn't even really close. The next most productive season in terms of points was 2018-19, where he had 27 points in 70. One games played, so his 36-point marker in 2015-16 was probably his best statistical year. He was just kind of in limbo the next few years in Calgary, getting consistent 26-point years, dropping off to getting 12 points in 52 games, 12 points in 38 games, and eventually getting traded to Florida, where he was over a point per game for the first time in his career. Now, that was a small sample size, and this season he isn't over a point per game. He's got 21 points in 28 games this year. But his 14-goal mark is good enough to be his second most productive goal season in his entire career. You gotta remember, this guy was drafted back in 2014. He's 25 years old now. He's had so much time in the NHL, and the good majority of that time was spent in the Calgary system that didn't really get the best out of this player, nor did he really go out there and showcase the best four. Calgary needed to trade this guy due to an expressed desire for a change of scenery and just to try to salvage what they could get, because the Sam Bennett experiment with the Calgary Flames just really wasn't working out. And now that he's on a better team, that is so gosh darn good. Florida is the top team in the NHL right now, pretty much. You talk about points percentage, goals, all that stuff. Florida is one of the best, if not the absolute best. And Sam Bennett is not one of those guys when it comes to leading the charge. Take a look at this. Huberdeau has 51 points in 37 games. Ekblad has 32 points. Reinhardt has 29. Verhaeghe 29. How the heck does Carter Verhaeghe have 29 points? Barkov has 28. Duclair has 28. And Barkov and Lundell are tied with Mackenzie Weegar for 7th on the team in points with 21. Bennett is not one of the top guys on the team in scoring. He is 7th on the team. Yet, he's still gone out there and really reaped the benefits of this fantastic hockey team coming together and producing the way that they have. He is a cog in the machine that is the Florida Panthers, and it's kind of funny because he was sort of supposed to be the cog in all those previous iterations of the Calgary Flames all those seasons ago. It's just now, playing on a good team, he's had himself an ability to thrive. The hat-trick yesterday cemented this season as one of the best, if not the absolute best, in his career. Do the math right here, 21 divided by 28, multiplied out by 82. Bennett on 82 games played is on pace for 60 points, which would be a career high by far. And so, taking a look at the trade, which ultimately sent Bennett to the Florida Panthers, an ultimate sell-low move by the Flames when they acquired Emil Heineman and a second-round pick. You just gotta laugh, man. Like, Calgary is doing so badly right now, and they're down in the dumps, they're losing games, yet Sam Bennett, the guy they traded away for such a small return, like, I'm sorry, Emil Heineman, I think you're a good player, it's just, Sam Bennett, dude. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating to see if you're a Flames fan, although maybe it's not, because I know a lot of people weren't really expecting the Calgary Flames to be this good anyway, or not this good, but like good enough to have themselves a good run at the start of the season. But who really knows? It is kind of frustrating, though, I might assume, to see Sam Bennett driving the way that he is. Although I have seen most Calgary Flames fans actually saying, yeah, he kind of screwed his development, so seeing him go out there in Florida doing well is a good thing. We're just happy to see him thriving because we weren't really able to allow him to do that here. But talking to the comments of your Calgary Flames fan, what do you think about Sam Bennett? What do you think about the way your team has been performing? Are you jealous? Are you upset? Are you kind of kicking yourselves in the behind for letting Sam Bennett go and allowing him to flourish in Florida? Or are you more of the perspective that you guys just didn't really work out and it's very nice to see him working out elsewhere? Talk to me in the comments. What do you think? I hope you enjoyed this Let's be honest. Quitting smoking is hard. Quitting feels so big. So maybe it's
At number 10, we have the witching hour. Have you ever wondered why 3 a.m. is such a traditionally scary time? My friends, let me tell you about the witching hour. In folklore, the hour between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. was considered a time for witches, demonic entities, and ghosts. They would roam free at their most powerful. Also known as the devil's hour, the time of night was thought to be a peak of supernatural activity, possibly because nobody was awoke to pray. Any woman caught outside at this time of night, especially in the Middle Ages, was arrested on suspicion of witchcraft, unless they could provide a good reason. Simply roaming free because you felt like it was not a good enough reason in the Dark Ages. And many of the women who were caught out at night were executed for witchery. There may actually be a scientific explanation for all of the bad juju discussed in the witching hour folklore. It seems that, oddly, ghostly experiences and apparitions tend to happen between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., which includes the dreaded witching hour. It seems at this point of the night, the amount of melatonin in the body peaks, which could be a reason for the ominous occurrences. That or witches.
Number 9, go to Paranormal TV. If you have a paranormal YouTube show and you go looking through the woods at night, you're pretty much asking for trouble. You can't complain about it. It's like eating deep fried cheese and then complain that you're constipated. It comes with the territory. Well, on Go Paranormal TV, one night he decided to go see what a creepy stretch of woods had to offer at 3 a.m. and it didn't disappoint. While Joe was trekking through, we hear some strange metallic banging of what sounds like voices. It could be some friendly campers, or it could be a crazy metal pot man letting you know he's about to murder you and then cook choke you in the pocket he was just banging with. Then he hears what sounds like a baby crying. If that wasn't enough, he comes to a clearing of what looks like a bunch of broken trees set in symbols. So this could be witches or a bear that was using them as a back scratcher. Either way, you probably shouldn't be hanging around the woods late at night if you want to keep all your limbs attached to your body.
Okay, so does anyone else? I forgot about my videos. Behold this footage from a famous Japanese peanuts tissue commercial. Child ogre, creepy singing, sure. But this is Japan, land of the eel ice cream and game shows such as Happy Pie Hell. This is normal, right? Wrong. The story goes that after this commercial aired in 1986, everybody involved died or met a horrible end. Isn't dying meaning a horrible end? For example, the woman in the commercial was supposed to have birthed a baby of her own, but it turned out she died in childbirth. Further urban legends say that if you watch the video at 3 a.m., the footage will warp and you'll become cursed. Some say it's 12 a.m., but honestly, one person's 12 and another person's 3, literally if you live on different coasts of America. So why is it cursed? Well, apparently that little ditty she is singing is alleged to be a German folklore song with the lyrics in German saying, die, die, everybody's cursed, everyone will be killed. Good. Somebody allegedly caught the video changing and warping on camera. Have a watch. Sorry, I might have cursed you there. What's a little curse between friends?
At number 7, we got Tony McClusey's Black Bag. Sometimes it's the people you think you can trust that turn out to be the most dangerous. Yeah, next time someone close to you tells you that they'll love you and always be there for you, good. Oh, I'm on to you. I'm not getting my eyelids stolen from a stick bagger. Tony McClusey was caught on camera late at night pulling what looks like to be a black garbage bag out from his car and taking it to a place to be disposed. Now, what is in this big old garbage bag? Was it some biohazardous chemical that needed to be disposed of very properly? Or maybe it was a wedding gift that you just couldn't bear to look at anymore after his divorce? How about this lovely sister Gemma? Tony McClusey chopped up his sister and stuffed her into garbage bags before secretly trying to dump her body. Luckily, he's very dumb and got caught on CCTV camera and sentenced to 20 years in prison for his horrible crimes. Apparently, this was all over an argument. So next time you catch your roommate eating your Cheez-Its, maybe you should just let it go.
You notice that when Jay walks off after doing a bit, he flips. Yeah, every time. Going into number 6, we have the neighbor. There is an Ask Reddit thread which poses the question, what's the scariest thing that's happened to you at 3 a.m.? There are some pretty intense responses, some including like ghosty, woosty stuff. But when I think about the reality of being met with some situations, reading this truly terrified me. River Tavares wrote this last year and got 1,100 upvotes. They wrote, this happened a year ago. My family was all asleep at 3 a.m. when I awoke to scratching at the front door. I peeked through the window to find a beaten, bloody young woman sitting cross-legged on my front steps, staring back at me. She was looking me in the eye. It was my neighbour. Her left eye was swollen shut. She had a laceration on her head. I opened the door and tried to get her to come inside. She was extremely drunk and hardly wearing anything on this cold winter night. She was babbling and not making any sense. I called 911, but when she realised I was calling for help, she screamed in my face, climbed over my chain link fence and flopped to the ground. She ran down the street, flailing her arms, bleeding and screaming. I thought her boyfriend had beat her up. They hadn't been known for domestic violence issues. I came to find out that earlier that day she got roaringly drunk and then tripped and hit her head on concrete. The laceration on her head actually had stitches in it already, which is why I couldn't see them in the dark. When she got home from the ER, she stole her roommate's whiskey and pounded most of the bottle. She then just went berserk. Jeez, that was a difficult read. Poor girl. Honestly, it sounds like she was in a really bad place. It must have been even more terrifying to hear scratchings on the door, but then open it up and know the person who turns up out there and seeing them like not acting like themselves like that, acting possessed. That's pretty scary. I really wonder how her story played out, but like, maybe she got better.
Number 5, we got Bad Choice Noah's Bad Choice. I mean, it shouldn't at all be a surprise that someone named Bad Choice Noah made it onto our list. That's like a guy whose name's Fall Off Skateboard Pete being in a fail video. It's just gonna happen. Well, one night Noah decided that he was gonna try and feed his large collection of snakes at 3 a.m. with the lights off, only lighting the area with a small flashlight. He did this because he thought maybe he would catch something paranormal on camera. I guess the logic is that ghosts like snakes or something. While doing this, one of his snakes almost bites his hand and then escapes from its cage. This could have led to Snakes in a Dark Room, which is the horror sequel to Snakes on a Plane that the public has been begging for. I don't think he ran into any ghosts, but being in a dark room and nearly getting bitten by a massive snake and then having it set loose without Sam Jackson there to save you is enough to make it onto this list.
Coming into number 4, this actually truly scares me. We have sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is so nasty. Landon and I recently did a list where we mentioned it, and honestly, I think that those of us who have ever experienced it can all agree that it is the scariest thing to deal with. Seconds feel like hours, and you're literally stuck, unable to move. Sometimes if your face is in your pillow, you feel like you can't breathe, and you think this is going to be your life forever. Honestly, it's really horrible. On scanning the internet, it actually seems like, oddly enough, a lot of people experience sleep paralysis at, guessed it, 3 a.m. While we have a scientific explanation for the horror, a lot of cultures believe that the phenomenon is caused by ghosts. Yes, ghosts. They believe that a malevolent spirit sits on your chest at night while you're sleeping and literally tries to suffocate you. The legend is most prevalent in Cambodia, but Thailand have their own version called Thiam. They believe that the Thiam don't attack women, so a surefire way to combat the ghost and keep yourself safe at night is to wear lipstick to bed. You hear that, Jen? Scientists will tell you that sleep paralysis happens when you wake up in the middle of REM sleep, the deep part of sleep. Part of sleep is around 3 a.m., which coincidentally is the witching hour. So, science or ghosts? You decide.
And now we come to number 3 on the list, and we got Bo Sardi and the Old Train Station. I feel bad for these YouTubers that have channels that are all about terrifying places. It becomes your livelihood. You literally need to go into some haunted places, possibly filled with demons that want to eat your lips just so you can make some money. I think I would rather be one of those guys that clean dog poop out of parks. Well, fortunately for Mo, this is what his viewers crave, and it led him to walking down an abandoned train station at 3 a.m. While doing this, a bunch of super normal things happen, like the sounds of a crying little girl. And at points, there even seem to be small, child-sized handprints on the windows. Is this because kids like to play around old abandoned train stations? Or because there's a scary little child ghost that's waiting to steal your body so she can live once again? I don't know, and frankly, I'm not going to find out. The only mystery that I'm going to solve is who's this season's Bachelor. I love trash TV.
Alright, I started this list by talking about witches, so I wanted to end my part with something magical at number 2. We have Dobby on CCTV. Dobby is a free elf. Had to say it. This was quite a recent 3 a.m. occurrence, and it looked like Dobby the house elf, or a tiny creepy troll. I go with house elf though, because even though they're both a little bit creepy, one can make puddings float, and I think that's kind of cool. So 3 a.m. Dobby went viral in June 2019 when Twitter user JB tweeted this footage with the caption, "A lady posted this and said she saw this on her home camera this morning, very early hours. What do you think it is?" He used JavaScript to respond and say that it is the late great house elf Dobby. Dobby's dead though, so this is some like reincarnation stuff going on. In just 1 week, the footage got 31 million views. The footage was shot on CCTV camera outside Vivian Comas's home, and as of yet, doesn't have an explanation. It seems like the footage has been declared as authentic, so it isn't doctored. Some say that the footage is of its kids in the funny house, but like, why are these kids out of witching hour? Unless, you know, they're little demons. I think a lot of kids are little demons, so I'm gonna go with that.
And finally, we have number 1 with Lou Rock at the Yellow House. Honestly, if you ever wanted to check out a haunted house, this would be the way to do it. Wait for a streamer to go into one with a live stream. That way, you can see all the spooky stuff in moment. Nothing's edited. And if the streamer gets attacked by a pool, you can spam F in the chat. Lou Rock decided to do just this. He went with some of his crew to go check out a famously haunted house known as the Yellow House. While inside, I'm sure you can imagine some weird stuff started happening. First, he entered a room with a bunch of clothes hangers which started moving on their own. Then, he walked into a space and heard what seemed to be a glass falling off the table, but no one else was in there with them. Then, he heard the noise again. Then he also came across a rope that looked like it was used to hang someone upside down by their feet. There was also a room that had all the drywall busted out, like it's haunted by a ghost named Kyle. In the end, Lou gets pretty spooked and skedaddles out of there so he can live to live stream another day. Number 10, St. John's Mercy Hospital. Oh, hospitals are a hotbed for all sorts of weird things. I mean, people dying on them every day. There has to be a bunch of ghosts and ghouls hanging around. If you die in a hospital, it must be like waking up in the middle of Mardi Gras when you become a ghost. Thousands of people just confused trying to find their friends. That's basically every festival I've ever been to. So hospital at 3M must be the best place to catch some eerie things happening. Well, this hospital had what looks like a ghost browsing through a magazine. I mean, that's not the scariest thing a ghost could do. I guess ghosts get bored in the afterlife as well. Well, this ghost kind of flips through some pages slowly, like it's browsing an IKEA catalog for some sort of paranormal bed frame. And then out of nowhere, the whole room starts getting tossed. Everything's flying around like a wrestler with a good insurance policy. Turns out this wasn't a ghost at all, but a tornado came barreling through the town and smacked right into this hospital in the middle of the night. Number 9, summer night knocking. Summer nights as a kid were the best. School was done and you could stay up as late as you want, doing whatever. You'd be out riding bikes, or you could just be binging food and watching movies until you passed out like a drunk bachelor. This Redditor was having a good night until there was a strange knock at the door in the middle of the night. It was submitted by Redditor Dead Man V. He said he was chilling in his room late at night and he heard his younger brother calling to him from the living room. He went to check on his brother, and his brother told him that there was a knocking at the door. So Dead Man V, the kid was probably 11 or 12 years old. This obviously freaked him out, so he ran up to his parents' room with his little brother to tell them what had happened. His parents went to go check if the little boy was there, and he was gone. Little did they know, they just let a ghoul into their home. No, I'm just kidding. The kid ended up being a neighbor, and he was sneaking out at night trying to spook people. The classic prank of a smiling kid at the front door in the middle of the night. Gets them every time. Number 8, roadblock. When you're driving at night, you've got to be super careful. You can't see well, and your chances of running into a wild animal goes up tenfold. This was caught on a driver's dash cam. He was driving along when he comes across what looks like a roadblock set up with some traffic cones. But there's no cops around. Instead, there's a hooded man with some 2007 style baggy pants who starts walking up to the car. Okay, if you're going to try to pull this trick, maybe you don't look like every dude who robs a convenience store and is late on his 5 kids' child support payments. As this rap video background actor starts approaching the car, the driver asks him a couple times, "What's going on?" After a few non-responses, he decides that this is too much of a sketch fest, and he speeds off out of there. Thank God this guy was probably too good to pull off his heist for real. Number 7, peacocks. Alright guys, I'm about to educate you. So this one was submitted to Reddit by Redditor Cat Aaron the Sly. She was visiting her grandma way up in the country, and the thing about her grandma is she has a bunch of pet peacocks. I can't wait to get old. You can stop caring about what other people think about you and be like, yeah, I want a bunch of peacocks because that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't care if you want to have sex with me anymore. I'm a peacock lady then. It must be so freeing. Well, late one night she was on her grandma's porch when she started to hear what sounded like someone crying out pain. This started going on long enough that it scared the hell out of her, and she ran inside. She found out later that peacocks cooing sounded exactly like a person crying out for help. I bet you didn't know that. Number 6, Slender Man at a hotel. Did Slender Man start as some sort of Reddit rumor? I'm not really sure on this one. Please let me know in the comments because I know I'm going to forget. But what I do know about him is he's supposed to be some sort of supernatural being that likes to eat people or absorb them, and he looks like the cross between a faceless albino and a guy with a wicked tailor. And he might have been spotted in this hotel. A security guard was up late one night when he saw what looks like to be a tall man walking in the background of security camera footage. The part that was really freaking him out about this is there wasn't anyone else working in the hotel at this time, and this tall skinny man was spotted in an area where only workers can get to. So was this a supernatural being, or was this just a mistaken identity? Number 5, fence jumper. If you look longingly out your window, most people think you're gonna look up at the stars and find true love. Well, sometimes you just see someone running for their life. Redditor Zappa_07 was peering out his window when he saw someone jump a fence into his backyard. This guy was running around all scared. He hid in his backyard and then jumped into his neighbor's backyard. I want to speculate on what's going on here, but I know a dude running from the cops when I see one. This guy was trying to make a break for us. Number 4, gas station. So this story originally popped up on Reddit and was super weird. It's about a gas station. One of the employees and the owner started noticing that motor oil was going missing. They had suspicions that it was one of their other employees, a guy named Jeremy. Never trusted Jeremy. So they looked over the security camera footage and they saw what looked like a loop because the same customer would come in every couple hours and take some motor oil. They then noticed that it wasn't a loop at all, but it was Jeremy coming in every few hours. It was super creepy. They were going to confront him about this the next day when he never showed up for work, like he knew that he was going to get caught. Later, the FBI came in to ask questions about him, and he may have been linked to an arson involving motor oil and the death of an entire family back in 1996. Ooh, number 3, cleaning home. I found this one written by Redditor Rolly Kirby Derby. She was home alone one night because her parents were out at a work function, and she knew they weren't going to be home until late. She wanted to do something nice for them, so she decided to clean the whole house. She had all the lights on, she was playing music, and she started to hear a door creak open. She went to go look at it, and it was the door to her sister's room, but her sister wasn't home. Jokingly, she said, "Shut the door already," and then the door slammed shut. She freaked out, went into her room, and waited for her parents to get home. Number 2, working from home. Here's a hot tip for people out there if you're home alone. Lock your doors. Hell, you should lock your doors even if your house is packed and you're expecting more people to come over. You don't want some lame stranger to wander into your house and kill the buzz at your party. Well, Redditor Hawk Singer was working home alone late one night, all by himself at 2 a.m. I know this list says 3 a.m., but I'm not going to care about 1 hour. I like this story too much. This is when he heard the coats move on the coat rack next to the door. This would normally only happen when someone opened the door, but it was way too late to come over, so he figured it was his cat jumping onto the coats. He went over to go grab his cat when he saw a man standing in his living room. Was he drunk? Was he crazy? We don't know. All we know is that he started yelling about where all this stuff was. He was very upset about that. So Hawksinger had to act fast and he grabbed the katana that his mom bought him for Christmas and chased this guy out of his house. That's how you deal with problems, baby. You threaten them with a sword. And shout to his mom for giving him the best gift that he's going to have to hide from every single girlfriend. Number 1 on our list, haunted home. So if you're being kept awake by spirits for 6 nights in a row, you should probably start looking for some listings. Nobody likes bad roommates, living or dead. This guy was having just that happen to him and decided to vlog his whole experience. The best part about this is he said he would continue to vlog the experience as people continue to like and subscribe. If you're gonna put yourself through some spooky torment, you might as well get paid for it, baby. The freakiest part about this video is when his phone flies off the receiver.
Figure out what's going on, and it happened a couple times already. And I don't know.
Now I understand how this guy is able to endure this paranormal punishment. He has a corded home phone. If he's willing to put up with that, that means he's willing to put up with anything. Those things are so annoying. Coming in at number 10, we have the old hag. This story was pulled from liveabout.com's paranormal section. Now, our list of scary encounters would not be complete without a sleep paralysis story. This story talks about a horrible reclusion that would come visit a person. They called this thing the old hag. When the writer was only 16 years old, she started to get visits from this monster. She described it as an old woman that looked very much like a witch. Oh, and she would just pop into a room and scare her from the corner. No. She would kneel on her chest and then look into her eyes. Just thinking about that makes it hard for me to breathe. Oh, and it would get worse than that too. If the writer was sleeping on her stomach, the old hag would come in, sit on her mat, run her hands underneath her face, reach into her mouth, and then pull her head back down. Coming in at number 9, we have a surprise visitor. When you're sound asleep and there's only a few things that can wake you up that won't upset you. One of those things is your pet jumping into bed with you. Now this is what lady from Tennessee found was happening. She thought it was this little kitty joining for a snooze. Well, it turns out it was something else.
Christine Humphrey is a surprisingly good spirit after sleeping with a woman. This was a grateful intruder.
I mean, that is one way to make you never want to go to bed again. That would make me so angry. I love my bed. I get some gross creatures in there and ruin it for me. I would be furious. But this lady got spooked by the 3-foot intruder, jumped out of bed and immediately called the police, who put her in touch with animal control, and the snake was quickly removed, and I think she spent the night sleeping on the couch. Coming in at number 8, we have exploding head syndrome. Wait, what? I didn't know that was something I should just get. I thought I would have to have my head explode from some sort of weapon or a psychic attack. But apparently, this can just happen to you while you're asleep. Now, even though the syndrome has the most frightening name of all time, it's not as deadly as it seems. It won't make your head burst open and paint your walls with your brain matter. What happens with EHS is when you're falling asleep, or when you're waking up, or in the middle of your sleep, you will hear a massive explosion that's just coming from your thoughts. Now, the good thing is, when you hear this explosion, it doesn't come along with a psychosomatic feeling of pain. But people who suffer from this typically get a massive wave of anxiety that will flow over their body, which sometimes changes into panic attacks. So imagine being woken up at 3 a.m. by an explosion that only took place in your mind, and then you have a panic attack, and then you can't get back to sleep. Yeah, no thanks to you. At number 7, we have waking up to groping. Again, no thank you. I don't care if we've been married for 30 years. You better not be groping me when I'm asleep at 3 a.m. You don't get this great look from disturbing your sleep cycle all the time. Well, sometimes it can actually not be the person's fault. There are a ton of stories online of people who suffer from sex nausea. This is a very rare disorder where when someone is asleep, instead of sleepwalking, it will become very sexual, groping and grabbing the person they're sleeping next to. And people who have this disorder will wake up and not remember doing any of this. People who actually struggle with this disorder will sleep with their hands and feet bound. Coming at number 6, we have fire. I don't know if anyone is going to be able to sleep soundly after watching this video because it's probably going to create insomnia inside your body. So on account of it would have to be a person or an animal or some creature human hiding in your corner with this such as go up. What about just a standard force of nature? Every now and again, we think that we are safe from the real world, that the laws of man will protect us from everything that is big and bad, but then the laws of nature will come into our life what the real rules are.
You got a fire in my bed.
You had a fire in your bed?
Yes, I can't get it out.
Okay, I want you all to get out of the house, okay?
Yeah, waking up to a fire in your bed is a great reminder that life is coming fast, and I bet that was heartbreaking because if you put up a fight and save your home, your practicing was for sure done for. Now, the cause of the fire wasn't clear to the news report where I connected this clip, but after a little bit of digging, I think I found out that it was either an electrical thing or it could have been someone falling asleep with a cigarette in their mouth. Coming at number 5 with footsteps. Of course, we've got to come back to another sleepful helps the story. I am so happy that I'm a sound sleeper. I don't have to worry about anything like this. When I wake up at this time, I would like to like not waking up unless it's trying to get up, or you hear that standard iPhone alarm. I think more people have a wake-up response to that noise than any other noise. But this story was pulled from the University of Society. The writer of the story said that when they were in sleep paralysis, they would be stuck on the bed, unable to move, just looking at the overjoyed windows. They would hear footsteps coming down the hall towards them, and they would start to walk into the room, walk up to the edge of the bed, and just stare at them. God, would you just like kill me or something? Like I don't want to just float in this constant state of fear. Coming in at number 4, we have ghosts. A classic one, they have to cover a ghost story, of course. Paranormal investigator Kashif Khan was eager to find some ghosts and went to the perfect place to make sure that he found some. Now, none of this video is in English except for a couple of words here and there, so I couldn't really tell what kind of building they were investigating, but it seems like a rundown warehouse of sorts. But it's very clear that the building is abandoned. Now, even though I couldn't understand what he was saying, I could easily tell what was going on in the video. I mean, it's a ghost hunting video. It can't really get that complicated. But here's a clip. The whole video is 18 minutes long, so that is just one strange encounter that you should find. I'm not sure what that was, but it sounded like some sort of guttural growl. But when he turned the camera a little bit up,